Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Age Differently, Meaningful Conversations for Men. My name is Darius and and I'm here with my co-host, Peter Callan. Peter, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Darius. Always a joy to see you, and always a joy to have the audience listen to these podcasts and hope that one person perhaps takes something impactful away.
Absolutely. And today's topic is something where you and I have different perspectives on. I think that lends to the joy of the conversation. That is unlocking the power of sleep to realizing a full and healthy and vibrant life.
Yeah, I would say different perspectives is an understatement, to be honest with you. We have different ways that we engage in this topic, this activity of sleep. And again, it just kind of reflects, there's no one way we're trying to promote or identify as suitable for everybody.
And so today we're going to talk about four things. One, we're going to talk about a little bit of the basic science of sleep. Two, we're going to introduce some common sleep problems. Three, we're going to go through some tangible steps that we've experimented with, we've incorporated to get a better night's sleep. And then finally, we're going to close with our usual call to action, or in this case, a call to rest, how you get a good night's sleep. But before we get started, I think we need to note for everybody listening, we're not physicians. This is not medical advice. If you have a serious issue, obviously engage with your healthcare practitioner. This is for educational purposes only.
Yeah, we're just sharing our own experiences. Between the two of us, we've lived on this planet for 120 years. And so we've had a few moments where we've learned a few things, as we continue to try to do every day.
You know, Peter, 123 years, 365 days a year. It's almost 40,000 times you and I have had to practice the science of sleep.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of knowledge.
I'm impressed with your quick math there, Darius.
Well, I hope it's right. So let's talk about the importance of sleep. I remember when I was growing up, sleep was always thought of as something that was not needed. It's not important. You know, we're going to live while we're alive and we're going to sleep while we're dead. But over the last couple of, actually the recent science has indicated the exact opposite. Sleep is just paramount to your overall physical, mental, and emotional well-being.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
So talk to me, Pete, about some of the different stages of sleep that people go through during a typical night.
Well, I'll share with you that you fall asleep. I fall asleep on my usual late nights around 1:30 or so. And for me, 6 hours of sleep seems to be enough, although the recommended amount of duration is 7 to 8 hours. I don't know if it's the aging process. I'm not sure that. I think I've always had a tendency to sleep anywhere from 4 to 6 hours per night. I do know that when I was younger, it was kind of a conditioning, a badge of honor that you slept less and worked harder and played harder. And sleep was just discounted. As you said, science has changed our perception. My perception of that, the importance of sleep is just obvious and something that just can't be discounted.
Yeah, so there's different phases. You have your deep sleep, which is where the brain is doing all its cleaning up. You have the light sleep where the body's resting, and then you also have REM sleep, and that's the spot where you're dreaming. But I think what you're talking about is the duration of sleep. And the duration of sleep is just highly variable by individual. And you're talking about getting by on 4 to 6 hours. If I were to try and get by on 4 to 6 hours, it wouldn't work. I'm 7 to 9, and a good solid 7 to 9 is what my body needs. And it hasn't really changed as I've gotten older. That's been pretty consistent from, well, maybe when I was a teenager, I would sleep even more thinking back. But it's pretty consistent. 7 to 9 hours is what I need.
Yeah, I think it's variable too. It's not just an age differential. Sometimes the activity levels that you're engaging in, whatever's going on in your life in the context of your daily activities can affect your sleep, your need for sleep. Working out. Sometimes there were times where I'd be training and I would sleep less. It was like my body was engaging in hyperdrive and fine with it. I think the body tells you what it needs in the way of sleep. Over the years, I've become a napper. And so when I need to take time to just rest, I'll just pause and take a nap for anywhere from 20 minutes to 2 hours.
That's so important to do, Peter, because sleep impacts everything from your cognitive function to your mood to your physical health. Think about how you feel after you got maybe an hour or 2 hours of sleep where you haven't gotten that restful night. The next day, you know you're not firing on all capacity. You're struggling at some facet. And maybe you're one of those guys or gals that can get by with a couple nights, but sooner or later, it does catch up to you.
Yeah.
So what are some of the common sleep problems that people encounter?
Well, there are people who can't sleep,
Insomnia,
insomnia. There are people who hold their breath, don't take a breath
sleep apnea,
when they're sleeping, and that can be dangerous. And it's a condition that, requires medical attention. I don't know. Beyond that, those are the ones I'm most familiar with.
you got restless leg syndrome.
Oh, yes.
Your legs move of their own volition while you're sleeping. You have an inability to stay asleep, so you can fall asleep quickly, but wake up consistently and frequently and for extended periods of time. And I think what's overlooked, Peter, is the effect of your mood on sleep, the impact of stress, the impact of anxiety on how you are sleeping and the quality of your sleep.
We've talked about stress in each and every one of our episodes, it seems. Stress affects sleep adversely. And so, again, mitigating stress is something that I keep highlighting no matter how many times we have to address it.
Yeah, and I think there's some key questions that our listeners should just kind of take a step back and pause and reflect. 1, do you struggle to fall asleep? 2, do you struggle to stay asleep? Are you waking up frequently? After being in bed overnight, do you wake up feeling tired, even though you've been in for the 7 or 8 hours? And then finally, what do you believe is contributing to your sleep issues? Because it's like you're an investigator, you're a detective. You have to piece together the factors. It could be diet. It could be relationships. It could be technology. It could be exercise. It could be stress. It could be a myriad of those factors all integrated together. What is contributing to those nights where you're not getting a good night's rest?
Important factors. And again, it's just paying attention and identifying which one of those is happening to you, whoever you are in the audience that is experiencing that change in your sleep, that effect in your sleep. Are you waking up tired? That's an indicator. You mentioned the different phases of sleep, light, deep, REM. What would you say to the audience about the importance of each?
I can't comment on that. I'm not a scientist, and Alfonso will cut this part out because I don't have the technical acumen. Let's try a different question, Peter.
So the question would be, in the context of waking up tired, my experience has been that when I have deep sleep, I'm able to function a hell of a lot better throughout the day than if there's just been light sleep. And, both of us have used now devices, the Oura Ring, to kind of track our sleep.
Can you show our listeners the Oura Ring?
The Oura Ring, there it is, yeah. And it's been quite helpful in kind of identifying the kind of sleep that I get throughout the night. And so it's a tool that helps me identify if I'm getting deep sleep, then the likelihood is that I'm not going to be as tired. If I'm just getting REM sleep, or if I'm getting some REM sleep, and again, I've noticed that there are different levels of REM sleep that I feel much more mentally awake throughout the day. So that's my own experience, and I wanted to share that.
Yeah, so let's start. You've transitioned into, let's talk about what are some of the factors that go into getting that good night's rest, some tangible steps that can be done. And I think the first thing I'll touch on, and then I'll pass it over to you, is listening to your circadian rhythms and understanding your body when it needs rest. For me personally, my circadian rhythms are I need to be in bed by 10 o'clock, and I'll wake up somewhere around 5:30 or 6. By 10:30, I'm getting increasingly tired. By 11 o'clock, I'm functioning, and I can just feel the energy going out. I'm a morning person. I've always been a morning person. The sun comes up, I'm ready to go. Your circadian rhythm?
It's quite different.
Very different. What's yours?
And late nights. And before I had an Oura Ring, before I was tracking sleep, It just late nights just felt best for me. I was most productive at that time, and I'm I'm sure there are other people in the audience who are also late night um, people, and I find that going to bed at 1:30 is consistent with my circadian rhythm. 1:30 in the morning, 12:30, and then waking up early is just really challenging, but I will do it after 6 hours or so.
Yeah. Now, one of the best practices that I've read about is going to sleep at the same time, regardless of whether it's 1:30, whether it's 2, whether it's 9. Is that something you try and adhere to as well?
At times. And this is where, I have to confess that my sleep habits aren't the best, and that, they're not something to be modeled, but I do know the importance of it. And this is where I think I would share that we each have to kind of listen to our body and figure out what works for us. I have maintained health despite this sleep pattern. So figuring out what works for you in the way of sleep is super, super important. And that's what I think we're talking about here.
Absolutely agreed. One of the things that I like to incorporate is a routine to get ready to go to bed so that my mind and my body knows that it's time, and I find it helps to fall asleep. I learned that really when I was young. I remember one time I stayed up working very late or studying, and I went right from studying to bed. That entire night, because there was no break between my brain shutting off, I dreamed about what I had been studying on, some kind of obscure biochemistry. So there was no period for the brain to wind down, and I didn't get the rest that I needed. That's when I learned the importance of some kind of routine, at least for me, to help transition from the activities of the day to preparing the body to rest and recover.
Yeah. The routine that I use is meditation. And it's not a long meditation. Sometimes it's 5 to 10 minutes. Sometimes it's a minute of just before I finally lay down to sleep, I pause and I try to quiet my mind. So that is one practice that I've engaged in for quite some time.
That's so healthy. Meditation, journaling, a hot bath, something for you to reflect and just slow down.
Unwind, stop the mind.
So that you can actually sleep. Another thing that I really focus on is the atmosphere, the environment of the room. I like cool, I like dark, and I also have taken to sleeping with a fan so that you don't hear street noises, you don't hear the clangs and bangs. I live in New England. I have an old steam system in my house. When the heat comes on, you hear it. I don't want to hear it. I want to be able to sleep through without distractions to get in and stay in that deep sleep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are important factors. I think most people need it to be dark. I don't know too many people who can sleep with lights on.
What about food and drink, Peter? What have you experimented with, and what have you learned with respect to the timing, the contents, and its impact on sleep for you?
Well, one of the foods to avoid, and this is quite obvious, is caffeine too close to sleep time, bedtime. So I try to avoid the caffeine. I don't drink a lot of caffeine, but even something as subtle as green teas can keep you awake, will keep me awake late into the night. There are foods that help with sleep. Tuna fish is one of those.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. It has, I think it's called tryptophan, which is a chemical that helps.
I thought that was in turkey.
Turkey as well.
Yeah. The branched chain amino acid.
Yeah. Yeah. So those foods are helpful. And I'm trying to think the other ones that melatonin, melatonin is very helpful in inducing sleep as well. But that's more of a nutrient or supplement. Those are the ones I've used.
What about, I've read a lot recently on the impact of screens and looking at either your device or a tablet or a TV.
It's probably the worst.
Yeah, explain. What do you think?
Well, that blue light, it's counter-inducing of sleep. It's prohibiting sleep. It keeps the mind very active, and it doesn't help with falling asleep. And so engaging in looking at your screens, your phones, your iPads, even a computer before you lay down. Again, without that pause, it's going to keep you from falling asleep. And so probably suggest not to engage in that activity before you're trying to go to sleep.
That makes sense. I mean, the screens are blue light. The body thinks blue light is day. And so your normal circadian rhythms are being disrupted by looking at the screens. The other thing that I've noticed is rather than mindlessly checking out and watching some show, take that time to journal. Take that time to reflect on the day. Take the time to meditate to help with that transition. If you're going to watch TV or a screen, absolutely don't have it in the bedroom. I mean, that's something that I just don't understand.
Well,
I can't.
Can we talk about that for a second? Because I'm like so aghast when a client or a friend tells me that they're watching the news before they go to bed.
In their bed.
In their bed, even worse.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, think about it. You're watching something negative, more than likely something controversial. And then that's the last imprint in your mind before you fall asleep. Some of the horrors or the chaos of what's happened in your community or to another human being. So I would kind of try to emphasize that watching TV before going to sleep is just terrible for your health and well-being and your sleep.
I agree with you, and I'll take it to a more practical level, which is if you're going to do it, which is your choice, at least buy some blue light blocking glasses, put them on so that your body isn't being stimulated and think that it's daylight. At least your body will start to wind down and that natural melatonin production will start to rise up. What about drinking? Water, alcohol, you mentioned caffeine. What about other thoughts on consumption of fluids?
You know, it's funny. Alcohol is supposedly calming and relaxing, but it's prohibitive in terms of helping you get to sleep. It doesn't help.
And stay asleep. It's terrible. Yep.
Yeah. And water, water I think is one of those things where it's an age consideration. Some people whose bowels can hold the water throughout the night, they don't have to worry about it. As you get older, I've experienced this off and on, ebbing and flowing.
Ebbing and flowing.
Yeah.
That's well said.
There are nights where it doesn't matter. I could drink a gallon of water and I'll hold it until the morning.
Yeah.
And then there are nights where it doesn't work real well and it has me up and down. And that's not good for a good night's sleep.
Yeah. So that's something to be considerate of, the timing of fluid intake. Obviously, avoid caffeine, avoid alcohol. Think about the timing and how your bladder is doing. If you don't have bladder issues, then that's fine. But if you do have a smaller bladder, or if you're finding the need to get up and urinate more frequently, well, then taper your water intake during the day so that it stops, so you have time to evacuate your bladder multiple times before going to sleep. Exercise. You've mentioned exercise and how it requires you to have less sleep. I have the opposite. When I lift heavy or when I start exercising, if I've spent 2 hours on the water surfing or at the gym or running, I'm going to sleep that night. I'm going to sleep sound and I'm going to sleep longer. So I find it interesting, fascinating, as Spock would say, that you get by on less sleep exerting the body.
You just reminded me that there is another factor at play here for me. I'm a practitioner of yoga and meditation. And some of the benefits of meditating may be that you rest the mind, you soothe the body. And so some of the restorative and recuperative aspects of sleep, perhaps, I believe it happens for me through meditation. And so there's another time factor that gets introduced for someone like me, I believe, where I don't need as many hours of sleep because I have a practice of meditation where a lot of the things we do to restore the body and the mind, resting, I can do when I'm doing a practice of meditation.
Very true. Very true. So just re-emphasizing, Peter and I are not physicians. We are not giving health advice to anyone. This is just based on our experience, our findings with, how many nights did I say? 40,000 nights of falling asleep. So to kind of wind this episode down a little bit, what we're summarizing is that sleep is an incredibly important tool in your overall wellness regimen. It is important to listen to your body to determine the amount of sleep, the time of sleep, and the variability. There's going to be times during the year where you're going to need more because there's things going on. There's going to be times where you need less. If you're not sleeping well, we need to investigate to understand why. Could be diet, could be stress, could be relationships, could be exercise, could be something on your mind. Could be how you're sleeping, where you're sleeping, temperature. I mean, you're going to play Jacques Cousteau or whoever the investigator was. And then there's a number of different potential tangible steps that you could take if you choose to improve your sleep.
There are. We've mentioned them. We've highlighted some of them are nutrition, hydration, meditation. And there are others that people can discover that are out there as well. And tracking and just being aware, I think, is what we're trying to emphasize here. Not discounting the importance of sleep. It's so important to the quality of your life, your living, your health and well-being, just as you said, Darius.
And it's not like is going to be maybe there is a one change that you make and all of a sudden you go from being an insomniac to sleeping 7 hours solid. In my experience, there's a series of small incremental changes which taken over time add to something bigger. Because when I see people, I can talk from my own perspective. If I haven't slept right for 2 or 3 days, I notice an impact on my ability to function mentally, not as sharp as I normally am. I notice an impact on my emotional well-being. My patience levels are down. My irritability level is much higher, and I will routinely apologize to people in advance. I'm cranky today. I'm cranky because I haven't slept. So I'm going to apologize if I say or I'm not acting like myself. And then I also notice that the physical function, my ability to perform some of the tasks that I would like to do, requires either more effort or is just not possible. So it has a major impact, at least on me.
No question.
So Peter, any words or a poem on the importance of sleep? And we haven't talked about dreaming and the importance of dreaming.
Well, dreaming is a whole nother conversation.
Different conversation, yeah.
Sleep, though, is more, we're talking about mental and physical well-being. And I'll share this quote, please, as part of what we're talking about here. Sleep is the golden chain that binds your health and your body.
Oh, that's so powerful. So appropriate. So our call to action for those listening is pretty simple. Prioritize sleep as a portion of your self-care regimen and find one thing to do, one experiment to undertake on yourself to try and improve the overall quality of your sleep. Once that's done, notice, observe the impact that it has had. And if it's working, obviously continue. If it's not, stop and try something else.
Yes. Again, highlighting, make sure you're paying attention, being aware, and then being present in your life and making adjustments that need to be there.
Wonderful. Well, Peter, thank you. And listeners, thank you. If you have any questions or comments, go to agedifferently.com. We would love to hear from you. Also, the show notes will be available on the website as well. And stay tuned. We'll be having our next episode, which is going to be focused on Winning in Corporate America. How to
Oh, that should be so interesting.
how to succeed while also, thriving physically, mentally, and emotionally outside of the office. Peter, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Good to see you.
You too. Until next time.
Next time.
Thank you, everybody.